Okay, welcome guys. Thank you for joining us. Today is our first podcast that we're launching on YouTube. It is called Igniting Conversations. And today I have with me the one and only Deeran Naik. He's the current team manager, as well as San Mudli's personal race engineer. Myself and Deeran and Bigfoot Racing go back a long way. And Deeran, thank you for joining us today and being a part of the session.
No, thank you for being here, Commission. Our relationship has spanned many years. Always great to have you in our pits as well as our workshop.
Likewise, it's always been a pleasure being around your team.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the AMG logo, and I haven't been used to seeing the AMG logo on your shirt. We know that San Mudli has been an avid Porsche fanatic. Some would say that he actually contributed to Ferdinand Porsche in the design of the recent GT3s with the amount of cars that he has. But I think, yes, our relationship, we go back a long way. And I mean, tell us, what are you guys up to? I see a new GT3 in the stable. We know you guys to be Porsche fanatics all this time. What's happening? I mean, give us some feedback into circuit racing in South Africa.
That is a very broad question, Commission.
You can take your time.
No problem. As many people know, we had to step away from the Porsche brand due to, the really detrimental circumstances that we faced here in KZN during the unrest. Unfortunately, at the time, we didn't really have any options to replace the vehicles that we had lost with Porsches, which was very sad for us because we only knew Porsche. Porsche for us was part of our DNA. If anybody mentioned Porsche or Porsche's racing, it would be Team Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We tried hard to get replacements in, but we just couldn't. So we had a discussion with our teammates overseas, and they said, no, try the AMGs. They are very reliable because, we look for reliability in both our vehicles as well as our business. It's something that we really push, as well as our fuel suppliers.
So I wanna try and unpack that because I see a lot of pain and sentiment in terms of that conversation. But I don't want to unpack it I wanna unpack it from my side in terms of Bigfoot Racing, in terms of the resilience. Because I'm gonna ask you the question, and I think this is what I wanna get to. I would have called it quits. If we had to put a figure. And I think it's not about the money on the table. It's more of the passion, the time, the hours that have gone into that particular setup. I'd like to actually unpack that sad series of events. We all know that the riots were hectic, particularly on most of the guys in KZN. The resilience in terms of the Bigfoot Racing team having to rebuild. A lot of what happened wasn't publicly made aware to any media. I know personally that you guys have lost a lot. Can you tell us a bit more in terms of, what happened to the previous cars, the workshops, and so forth?
Yes, during that period of July unrest, unfortunately, our workshop was targeted, and all our vehicles, equipment, machinery was all damaged, destroyed, up in flames, unsalvageable, basically a write-off. And after that loss, we were all pretty quiet, trying to reflect.
How many cars did you guys lose?
We lost 5 vehicles.
5 vehicles?
5 vehicles, yeah. It was 2 customer cars as well as our own vehicles that we had.
The type of vehicles that were in the shop?
They were mainly Porsche Cup 991s, and there was a GT3 991R type R, which we had just brought in specifically for a new series that had started in South Africa.
I've got a picture with that car. That was the one when we had the Sectra launch.
When we had exactly, yes. That was the one that we used for the launch.
Okay,
yes.
so I'm hoping we still have that picture and we're able to display that. But I think, it's difficult to put a value in terms of the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that actually go into racing, particularly the hours that Bigfoot, San Mudli, you and the team have actually put into the track. So, you don't really see race teams have that type of resilience and bounce back. Can I ask you guys why? If it was me and a lot of guys out there,
yes.
People are just thrown in the towel. Why bounce back? There must be some serious passion.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors that I think drove us to getting back to where we currently are today. One of them being Sun himself and his fearless motivation to push boundaries and stay on course. But I think the biggest lesson that we all learned from that event, whether it was at our team or in our office, was that, you know, a building or an office or a workshop does not make the team. It's the people
100%.
behind the team
100%.
that make the team. And, you know, using that energy that we have both at our workshop and within our company, I mean, we're able to do incredible things that I think, I wouldn't say normal people, but I would say people that don't have these types of opportunities are able to do. So, you know, with the leadership of Sun and with all of us pulling together, I mean, we made light work of what we experienced. I mean, even though that must have been, well, I would say it was our lowest point.
Well, you know, from my experience seeing you guys at the track, and from the time that, I mean, we go back around the 2016, 2017 year, a lot of respect for Bigfoot Racing. I think you guys have definitely raised the benchmark in terms of GT racing in South Africa. It's phenomenal, you know, to have that type of perseverance and commitment to the sport. I think particularly between San Murli and the rest of the team. Well done. From my side and from my team side, I think we need more of that in motorsport in South Africa.
For sure.
And it's also about the legacy. I think what you guys are leaving for the next generation is you guys are setting that benchmark. And I think well done for coming back and rebuilding. And I think that's what we are about as South Africans and as individuals.
I mean, we face a lot of hardship. We still do face a lot of hardship in all facets of our life within South Africa. Not to say South Africa is the problem, because South Africa is actually the answer. If you look around the world, I mean, we have a fantastic life here. There's so much opportunities, and people are able to, you know, do and live, you know, as they please. We're not policed.
Can you, you know, my question is, why? Why build the Bigfoot Racing legacy always backing Porsche, and the sudden change to AMG?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, when the riots had occurred, availability of vehicles overseas is very sparse, and especially at that point in time, because we had just come out of COVID. And due to that, a lot of vehicles had not been run. And so because they had not been run, they were essentially a year younger than what they were. So that prompted us to have to find alternatives. And our teams that we normally run with in Europe, they said, go to AMG. So we said, okay, let's try AMG out. And then we backtracked because we were always Porsche guys. So we said, okay, let's wait a bit longer. Maybe something will happen. And nothing happened. And we said, we need to pull the trigger. And Sun was saying, I'm not getting any younger. I need to be in a car. And he was getting very, very like antsy about it. So we went to Europe. We went to France, Paul Ricard. We did a test there with our teammate Andrew Colbert. And yeah, they were really excited. I mean, we tested the cars in the wet, which was quite hair-raising because we'd never driven, you know, this configuration of vehicle before. And yeah, they enjoyed it. They loved it. We brought the first two in, and yeah, here we are today, AMG.
Brilliant. Some of the accolades achieved with this car, I think over the 2021-2022 season.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We've been quite competitive with these vehicles, especially Sun. Andrew had a bit of an on and off year, but you know, once he got back into the car, he also started performing really well. So Sun in 2022-2023 was the National SAGTRA AM champion, and Andrew picked up that accolade last year as the Pro AM champion in SAGTRA, which is another national accolade. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not all about talk; it's also about performance.
It's all about performance.
100%.
It's all about performance.
Tell us more about this monster. I know that Mercedes has stuck to their current 6.3 liter setup. We'll obviously walk around the car and we'll give you guys an insight. Tell us a bit more about the transition. We're running stock management on the car. I see there's a lot of carbon fiber panels. Just a bit more about the car and what AMG has produced for the South African GT3
Yeah, well,
racing.
you know, in terms of you know, where we come from and what we're used to, the engine is in the front.
Yes.
In this car, and that was, I think, the biggest change that the Andrew and Sun had to make in terms of their driving. But you know, other than that, this is a very well sorted car. There was not much more adjustment we needed to do as a team to become competitive. And once the drivers settled in, we started getting the times that we wanted to get. So we are actually very happy with these vehicles. Not as easy to work on as the Porsches, but that V8 makes up for it, I guess.
I met you guys at 2022, and I think it was a 2023 SRO Motorsport 9-hour at Kailami.
Yes.
And it was a pleasure seeing you guys there. We fueled that event. And I think, there's a very fine room when it comes to boys and men, when it comes to endurance racing. You guys have always featured.
Especially at that international level that the SRO, dictates. I mean, another level. Completely.
Definitely. And I think Bigfoot represented, and I like to say Africa.
Yeah, of course.
As a continent. Yes. So, it's nice to see our African teams representing and also competing. Mercedes has definitely been a pleasure to work with. I think on the last SRO event, we've had a fabulous technical session with most of the OEMs there. We got to meet a lot of guys from Germany, Europe, etc. And I think these particular platforms in the current series are performing extremely well. So, brilliant choice. Tell us more about our fuels. I mean, tell us more about the relationship with us, how far back you guys go, why fast fuels? I think that's ultimately
the main question. Well, Commission, I think we met in 2016. When it came to fuel, we only really had one choice back in the day. It was a green brand. I won't mention any names. And we always bought this fuel thinking, man, this fuel is going to make our car go amazing. We never knew anything about it. We just kept using it and using it and using it. And and then the designer fuel started coming into the marketplace. And so we had our discussions. We decided to take a chance, with a fuel other than one of the big name brand fuels. And ever since that point in time, we've predominantly been using fast racing fuels. And we've competed in different cities around the country where they have different fuel suppliers, and it's always a case of you over here in the pits of this engine has this issue and that engine has that issue, or he blew that engine and he didn't have enough lubrication, and these are all questions that we've never really asked ourselves because I guess we've never really had any issues. And we've always run fast fuels, and I think the main answer here is consistency, because every time we race, there's a new brand that comes out, and nobody's been, I think, in the local market longer than you guys have, in terms of designer fuel. Fuels that have been blended locally as opposed to imported.
I'm with you. We've come a long way on these particular platforms with the OEMs, especially with the larger V8 engines, that generally suffer with heat soak. So we had to develop a fuel for the GT3 SRO event, which is FIA compliant.
And I mean, that in itself is quite a high accolade, because when we went to Paul Ricard, the SRO head office is there, and the amount of testing and the stringent measurements that these guys use, it's intense, and they have to be, because the value of our vehicles is mainly in the engine, and without that level of performance as well as reliability, there would be no real way that we would actually touch.
So I don't wanna put you forward here in terms of this question, but Mercedes is no longer going to have the 6.3s. So it's the end of a dying breed. I just want to figure out where's the future of the race team if we have to go and discuss hybrid technology. If you look at the new platforms now that Mercedes have launched, particularly on their new C63s, the ES edition, the only thing that's 6 there, it's got a 6.1 volt lithium ion battery. It's got a twin electric turbo.
Yes.
And what we're noticing is that obviously the cars now need to comply to much more regulated platforms, better reduced emissions, greener fuels. Where do you guys see yourself moving into the future?
Well, I think currently we're in very murky waters, because we're hearing a lot of different answers to that question from our European counterparts, as well as from the companies that manufacture these vehicles. In terms of full electric, I would not say that move is anywhere near. In terms of hybrid possibility, but in terms of these vehicles, we've been running non-turbocharged engines for a very long time. I mean, since we started racing, all our vehicles have been non-turbocharged. And I think the first level of efficiency would be turbocharging before we move on to lithium-powered hybrids. And I think what's happening in terms of the retail side of manufacture for Mercedes-Benz with their 2-liter. It just doesn't sound right. Yeah. What's happening in that case will obviously translate to motorsport, but it should have. Generally, it's whatever happens in motorsport translates down to the road car, and whatever technologies are formed within the motorsport sphere, it trickle down. All those new features, so the development costs are in the motorsport, and then it slowly gets absorbed into production. But there was a GT2 version that was released not so long ago. That GT2 version has got a twin-turbo 4-liter, which is the current, big 4-liter that's being used in a lot of their coupes and sports cars. So the idea, I think, was to get that 4-liter twin-turbo into this level of racing for next year. But I hear that the plans have been scrapped, and we are awaiting.
Okay, so we're still sitting with the 6.3 liter it's out of the factory. Any modifications on the engine so far?
A lot of people ask us this question around the track, like what modifications have you done, and how have you changed the exhaust, and what map are you running? But the reality of the situation is this car comes, as you see it, directly from AMG. Okay. We do not touch, we do not change, we do not reprogram, modify in any way, and that also just speaks to our ethos of reliability.
Yes.
And you can only win a race if you finish.
100%.
And I would say quite a few times, races have been won on reliability.
Nobody remembers who came out second.
Nobody remembers who never finished. That's a fact.
The transmission.
Yes.
6-speed, air shift.
Yes, it's a 6-speed straight cut sequential transmission with an air shifter that's been fitted onto it. It gives a lot more control to the computer, so that if it senses that we are trying to change down too early to protect the engine and the other components on the drivetrain, it will actually retard or delay the shift down.
Okay.
Again, standard, all comes from AMG, set up the way it's currently set up.
Okay, so I think in terms of your safety functions, just to ensure there's no detonation as well as high revs through the transmission ranges, you have your air shifter that is connected to a very advanced ECU to assist you with that. Yeah,
correct. The Bosch Motorsport ECUs, we've been using them for many years in the Porsche Cup vehicles. Porsche recently switched to Cosworth, and then now we're back with Bosch here. And the level of scrutiny, once again, that these components actually go under, and also the level of feedback that they give us, allow us to highlight any issues or shortcomings that we may have, when we are running the vehicles. And we run these at a very high level. And, any small inconsistency with whatever we put into the vehicle will definitely show up as alarms or errors, within our telemetry.
Well, you guys are into endurance racing, and I think one of the focus points, particularly on endurance, is the amount of time that you guys put into the track. So, you're not the park and shine, show and shine type of team. So, I've seen this particular vehicle at the track. We looked at you guys, doing an amazing job as calibration engineers. And, from a technical standpoint, we consider ourselves to be your preferred fueling partner in terms of the technical advice.
Yes.
So when we look at endurance, and the particular fuel that we're supplying you guys with is a 102 unleaded. As mentioned, it's FIA approved. And the fuel is non-oxygenated. So, a lot of what we do is measure, okay, fine, what is the consumption on the fuel? What is the fuel burn ratio? Is the fuel burning fast? You're getting more consumption of it per liter. And also, how abrasive is the fuel in terms of the lubricant on the engine? We spoke about blowing engines. We spoke about viscosity, particularly when you have bore wash or fuel dilution. This is not a cheap engine, so it's not something that you can just get off the shelf.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When we brought in our first 991 Cups, that is when we formed our relationship and we started using your fuels. When we did our compression test after a year and a half of running, we found that there was negligible loss in terms of compression. We didn't have, there was minimal wear and tear, and that's what you want at the end of the day. And we these engines, when we're on the track, they're sitting at their rev line or just below. about 500 RPM,
Yes.
constantly,
Constantly.
lap after lap, hour after hour, and that is where they sit. So, like I said, any small irregularity is going to cause a massive drop in performance.
I've seen this car. I'm not sure whether there's any videos out there, but during the 9-hour endurance at Kyalami, all of your discs are glowing red. Your exhaust is glowing red. I mean, your temperatures inside the car is significantly higher. You're running extremely hot. So there is definitely very harsh conditions. We know when it comes to our particular product, the type of engineering that's gone into it to ensure that you guys as calibration engineers get it right every time. And also it's consistent. I think consistency
is key.
Is important.
Yeah, it's very important, even with our drivers as well. Without consistency, you can't measure. Without measurement, you can't change. So that is why we appreciate working with your brand, because we get that consistency in performance. We are not having irregular readings at every different track we go to. We can see the consistency and the reliability at the end of the day.
Thank you for all of the support over the years. I think also thank you for believing in us. You guys as a racing team play a significant part in terms of GT racing in this country, and I would say particularly in this continent and international. You guys have definitely stepped up or paved a platform for us to actually go international as well by working on these type of platforms. So as one South African company to another South African company, and I think to San Woodley, thank you very much.
All good.
We appreciate it. Thank you for the support.
partnership.
Likewise.